So I've just been having a fascinating conversation with a customer about the spectrum of available road bikes. And we ended up drawing this little chart here, which I'm going to neaten up and put on the screen for you as we go. And it really, really helps sort of clarify the situation and steer them towards the type of bike that they were perhaps looking for. And I said, do you know what? We should just share this, put it out on a video, just let the YouTube comments take over and just see where it goes. Because what we discovered is that a lot of the established sort of normal ideas have been intermixed with marketing terminology, and just drawing it out like this really, really helped. But what we came to was this idea of a very, very relaxed, comfortable, all-day touring type of bike, Audax, randonneur type of thing, right the way through to a super aerodynamic, really aggressive time trial or aero bike, and drawing the spectrum. It was obvious that as we went through this spectrum, that the big key change that was really, really obvious to us was the stack height, which is the height of your handlebars. Now, on a touring type bike, we want a very sort of sat upright position, and what we call the saddle to bar drop is sometimes almost completely parallel. They're almost level with each other. And then as we go down to the super aerodynamic time trial bike, when we're trying to get our body down as low as possible and reduce our overall frontal area, that is where the really, really low stack heights come in. And as we become more of a race bike as opposed to a road bike, that stack height gets lower and lower and lower. Now, as we went through, we noticed certain geometry changes that enable that sort of stack height to become useful to us. So what we're going to do is going to go through this little spectrum, and we're going to start slap bang in the middle, what we called the road bike, not the race bike, because these two terms get used interchangeably, just the drop bar, a road bike. This is probably what the majority of road bike riders actually ride, because we do a variety of different things. Yes, we might go and do the occasional race, but we're more likely to do a sportive, a fast and furious 2-hour rides after work, or ride with the club on a Saturday or Sunday morning. It's that sort of thing. So a lot of variety in there. And for me, the bikes that really epitomize this category were the Time Alpe, which is fantastically stiff, very, very comfortable, really, really versatile bike. The Trek Emonda with the H1, H2 geometry, depending on your individual mobility, things like the Ridley Helium. But the characteristic here is a moderate stack height, but the 73-degree seat angle and the 73-degree head angle, those two things really, really characterize it. So 73, we've talked about this on the channel before. As we move towards the more aerodynamic side and we get into race territory where we want our frames to be a little bit lighter, a little bit stiffer and a little bit lower, we have things like the Giant TCR, the Specialized SL678, the BMC Team Machine, the Cannondale Super 6, classic race bikes, that are designed for those nimble handlings, those aggressive racing maneuvers of sprinting away, cornering, accelerating, braking hard, those classic sort of racing moves. Still has that classic 73 angles, but we expect them to be a little bit lower at the front and just a little bit more nimble. Keep going in that direction and we start to become more aerodynamic. So some races really, really do need a more aerodynamic bike. And this is where we see not just aerodynamic profiles, but we try and find something that enables the rider to actually ride a more aerodynamic position. Now, to do this, we normally steepen up the seat angle to a more like 74 degrees. And that enables the rider's hips to be a little bit open, which we then use to rotate our hips further forward and lower and reduce that frontal area of the rider. So things like the Look 795 Blade are doing this, the Canyon Aero are steepening up that seat angle to enable the rider to have a lower, more aerodynamic position that complements the aerodynamic qualities of the frame, if you like. Makes so much sense. Keep going towards time trial, and that seat angle gets even steeper. To help with that really, really unstable handling and the high speeds actually, is that they also slacken the head angle to almost like 70 degrees sometimes. And that really does help stabilize the handling when you're in this narrow, compromised position and traveling at speed as well. So generally speaking, as you slacken the head angle, you'll find more stability at speed, but you'll sacrifice maneuvering and the sort of the agility of the bike. So talking of which, let's go back to our road bike and then off in the endurance direction. And for that, we have things like the Look 765, which I ride, and I featured on the channel before, the BMC Road Machine, amongst others. Now, here we can expect the stack height to be just a little bit higher, but we're also going to see the seat angle just steepen a little bit. Well, I think it should do. It doesn't always, but I think it should do to 74 degrees. Because in my mind, an endurance bike is actually all about momentum. If you think about your road and your race bike being nimble, adaptable, when you're climbing it, descending it, you can throw it around corners, do lots of different things with it. The endurance bike for me is about long, steady miles. It can still be fast miles, but you're not going to be braking and turning corners and doing lots of hairpins. It's normally just good, steady momentum. And that is what those two bikes, I think, are fantastic at. Couple them up with an aerodynamic set of wheels, some nice comfy tires, and you can ride at speed quite happily. And I'm really happy with those sort of bikes because you can bomb down like Shap fell at 60 kph and still feel totally in control, even if you're tired and fatigued. That to me is what an endurance bike should be. Stable, predictable handling in a comfortable position, and a bike that just seems to just maintain momentum no matter what you throw at it. It might not be the quickest to accelerate or the fastest to brake or the most nimble around a corner, but just set it on a mission and it goes. Keep going in that direction and go to some really epic rides like Audax rides, Randonneurs, that sort of thing. And we get those touring bikes where we normally see things made out of titanium and steel and that saddle to bar drop being almost level. And this is where we see, again, a more upright position. So we tend to see seat angles around 74 degrees and head angles around 71 degrees, again, for stability, nice cruisy type of geometry, but with a much higher stack height in a much more upright position. Now, one more thing to add on this, as well as stack height, we also need to consider wheelbase, because some brands, rather than changing the seat angle, will just adjust the wheelbase, and a longer wheelbase will tend to give you, again, more stability at speed without necessarily having to slacken the head angle. So a good example of this is actually the Time ADHX, the Outdoors X, where still sticking with the 73 degree head angle, but then just making the wheelbase slightly longer to give that the same idea, and still putting the height up a little bit. Loads of other brands do this, like the Trek Domane is a great example of 73 degree angles, but longer and higher. There's another way of approaching it. Canyon, Endurace, etc. do a similar sort of thing, longer, higher, but still 73. So I hope that kind of helps. I think it's worth sort of looking at that graph and sketching it out and sort of determining what it is that you want from a bike, and then not just going, okay, I've been told this is an endurance bike. Is it really an endurance bike? This is especially true if you are shorter or taller than the norms, because what you might find, this is really, really likely, is if you're a shorter rider and you get into the size small and the extra smalls, that your race bike is actually almost an endurance bike. Because of how they have to sort of squeeze everything into the 700C wheels and the size. And the same way with, if you're buying an endurance bike, it might actually almost be too relaxed for what you're looking for. So it's worth looking at the geometry with that overall picture in mind. Anyway, like I say, we found it kind of useful. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But as always with these videos, the comment section is a lot more interesting than what just came out of my mouth quite often. So get down there in the comments, add to the discussion, and yeah, let me know. Till the next one, take it easy.